So here we're going to create a class. Okay, so we call it short grid controller, and that's going to be of a type UIView controller. And then now let's add our variables. Okay, so we've got two main variables here. So we have the collection view, which is that collection view which was in the storyboard. We're going to have the collection view flow layout. We're going to have like a list of shots which is going to be displayed on this grid, and then the height of each cell. That's the information that we have for now. Okay, so next let's override the viewDidLoad method and then try to start building our view. Okay, so now here you can see a new, we have overridden our viewDidLoad method, and then let me walk you through what we've done here. So we have the title, we're going to call that shots, that's the title of the view controller, and then we're going to set this view controller as a delegate and data source for our collection view. Right, to set our background color for the collection view to the clear color, and then we're going to do some more layout in here. So the inter item spacing is going to be 0, and the minimum line spacing, so that's the spacing between each cells, right? So we're going to make that 0 for both of them. And then the width of our cell is going to be half the frame, half the width of the frame. So we're going to have two cells side by side. And then so that means our item size is going to be the width, and then the height 240, which we've created here. And then in the next line, we initialize our shots variable here to an empty list. And then we now call our Dribble API to load our shots. So we probably need to create like a callback function in here so we can actually display the shots, but then that will come later. Okay, so we can see we're going to get a couple of errors here. That's because our view controller does not conform to the view controller delegate function. So let's add that in. Okay, so we have these in there now. So now the next thing is now we actually have to implement this delegate methods. Okay, so let's add those functions in there. Okay, so I've pasted these two in. So this is the cell for item at index part. So this is going to return, this is where we're going to configure the cells for our collection view. So at this moment, we're just going to return a generic collection view cell, which has that reuse identifier. And then the number of items in section delegate method is going to actually, so that's a data source method, is going to give us more information about how many cells should be returned, and in this case, it's going to be the list or the number of shots there are. Right now we have 0, but then at the end we're going to have some when the Dribble API returns. Okay, so before we now continue, we want to actually configure how these cells are going to look like. But then to be able to do that, we're going to have to create a custom cell called shot cell. So let's do that, and then we can now continue. So I'll go here, I'll create a new group. Call that cells. Put that in the cells folder. So now I'll call that shotcell.swift. Alright, so now we can see that we have the shotcell class in here. So we need a couple of variables in there for our UI interface. So we have 3 items. So that's going to be the image view to show the shot itself, the name of the shot, and then the title of the shot, and then the name of the artist or the designer in this case. And then let's configure this. So now we're going to style these 3 user interface items to actually look nicer. And to do that, we're going to override the awake from nib method. and then we're gonna set the text color and the font of the labels, and then the border color and the border width of the image views. So in this case, you see that we set the text color to black, and then we set the font to a new font called megatheme.font name. I'm going to explain where that comes from. And then the same thing for the title label, and then we style the cover image view. You're going to see this show up in the UI later in a bit. All right, so now how do we get this mega theme? So this is actually some data which you get from our new theme called Mega. I'm going to copy that, and then you can actually see how that works. If I go back to my Mega template, you can see this new file called megatheme.swift. It's actually a very simple file. All it returns is some information about the font name, a bold font name, semi-bold, dark and light colors. So the idea is you can actually change the whole font of your app on the fly. Well, actually not on the fly, but then it's easy to change by actually changing this method. And if you use this all across your app, you can restyle or give a different look and feel to your app. So that's how we do it on App Design Vault, and I hope you guys can probably implement that. So I'm just going to copy this and then put this also in our new app. So let's create a new theme group. So I'll paste that in there. Let's remove that duplicate method. So now we have that, and then our application should build right now. So let's build that. Okay, so that succeeded. So we are good. So our short cell has some more information, and our short grid has some more information. So now the next step is to actually configure what happens when the cells are returned on the user interface. So we have the cell for item at index part, right? So now let's configure what should show up here. Okay. So what we're gonna do just at the first step is to actually set the title. So we're gonna get the shot for this index part. So we're gonna go to the list of shots, get the shot for that index part on that row, and then set the title, the text to the title of that shot. The error here is coming because we're returning a UICollectionView cell. We do want to return our custom cell there. Alright, so we are almost good to go to run this on the app. But before we do this, we need to make sure that our storyboard is actually connected to this shot grid controller. So if I go to the shot grid controller, so zoom to 100%, and then we can see that has given us some connections. Just by copying this across, we already have the connections to our collection view and then our layout in here. So if you were doing this from scratch, right, so what you actually do is, let me take this out. This is probably what you'll see. So now we need to connect our outlets to the information that we see on the storyboard. So I'll right click on here and then drag the collection view outlet to my collection view, and that's connected. And then also look for the layout for the collection view. That's that one, that's the flow layout. And right click on that, and I'm going to drag this to my collection view flow layout. And then we're good to go. So the next thing we also want to do now is our cell. We need to change this to our custom cell. So I'm going to go here and click on album cell. I'm going to change that to short cell, and then change the identifier to short cell as well. I'm going to remove this label since we don't need it. And then I'm going to do, let me take those out as well. So now I want to connect my title label to this one at the top, and the name label to this one at the bottom. Right? Okay, so it looks like we're good to go. So we have an error here. Okay, so I think I know what that is. So what we need to do is because this is we're gonna click on this cell to actually open another segue, right? So now we might as well just create a navigation controller for this. So we're gonna embed this whole view controller in a navigation controller. So I'm gonna click at the top here, and I click on Editor, Embed in Navigation Controller. So if I zoom out, so you're gonna see that in here, and then our error has gone away. That's because it wasn't navigation controller before. Zoom back to 100%, and we have our title navigation bar in there. All right, so now we can run this in the app. Let's see. Fingers crossed, and let's see we can start seeing some more information. Okay, so we could run this in the app, but then we do need to get a callback from the Dribble API. So if you notice, if you go back to the shots grid controller here, we are loading the shots, but then we do need to set this value to something so that when the API returns with some more information, we can actually put that into our variable here. So let's create a new method here called didLoadShots. Okay, this is a very simple method. It's called didLoadShots, and then it's going to be called with an array of shots, right? And then what we're going to do is when we get that back from the API, we're going to set that to our variable here, to the self.shots, that's this one up here. And then we're going to reload our collection view. Very simple. And then I can now call this here, and I can now add this here as a function pointer. So basically, this is the callback method, and then this function is going to call this new one when it returns from the API. And we're getting an error here, and that's because here back on the Dribble API, we said it's going to return any object, but we don't want any object. We want a list of shots. So that's because we created a new callback function there. So now let's change that to an array of shots. That's how an array is written in Swift. Alright, so let's run this app on the simulator and see what we get. Alright, that's good. Well, you might not see much, but then you can already see that we're getting somewhere. So here we can see that the title of the shot is actually already populated. The name of the designer is not populated yet because we haven't gotten that from the API, and then we also don't have the image. So the next step right now is to actually now go and try to get this information from the API and display this on the screen. So hang in there, we're almost done with this screen. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can get that up and running. Thank you very much for watching this video.